Hey, this is Johnny Cornwell of Dig, and you're listening to the Nothing Shocking podcast.
Want to know what's going on in the world of music? Then tune in to the Nothing Shocking podcast, a non-genre based, all ages friendly rock and roll program. Join us weekly for interviews with all your favorite rock stars from the mainstream to the underground. You can find us at nothingshocking.libsyn.com or anywhere you download podcasts.
We're putting the band back together.
The numbers all go to 11.
I'm talking about bands that rock. Led Zeppelin. What about Sabbath? AC/DC. Motorhead.
Does that mean it's louder? Isn't it any louder?
Well, it's one louder, isn't it?
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Why don't you just make 10 louder and make 10 be the top number and make that a little louder?
These go to 11.
I get up off the ground and raise my head. Days like this, think I should be dead. One for Satan, two for me. Let's cheat the devil, it's fun, don't you agree?
Welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'm your co-host, Jeff Untied, and with me in Dog Bowl Studio is
Coach Nez.
You can find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Libsyn or any podcatchers. Like our Facebook page or follow us on X at No Shock Pod.
You can also find the Nothing Shocking podcast on Rock Rage Radio every Sunday morning at 7 a.m. Central Time. Our sponsor is Big Strix Vinyl Records and Sports Cards, located in Rock Island, Illinois. New, vintage, and previously owned. You can find it at Big Strix. We'd like to thank the Hong Kong Sleepover for allowing us to use their music for our intro and bumper ending. Tonight's guest is
Johnny Cornwell from the band Dig. We talked about their 1993 debut, and they got a new album coming out, coming out in April of 2026. Check it out.
Yeah, let's get to that interview.
All right, good night.
Good night. Johnny, welcome to the Nothing Shocking podcast. I'd like to introduce you, my co-host, Jeff Untied.
Johnny, thanks for joining us tonight.
Hey, guys, thank you.
Super excited to have you on tonight. So pretty exciting times for you. Dig has released a new album digitally, but the album is going to come out in physical form here this April. Would you care to share with our listeners about this new musical endeavor?
Yeah, sure. It's been in the making for a while, since our success in the 90s. We've been kind of on and off, playing a show here or there, making music together and all that. And so we had a bunch of material all done. And finally, this label out of New York called Den of Wax reached out to us and said, hey, if you guys are ever going to put out that record you've been talking about for the last, several years, we'd love to put it out on vinyl. And we were like, we're ready now if you guys want to do it. So we worked out a little contract with them. They're a little bit more known for specialty packaging.
Sure.
So they kind of go the extra mile with their packaging, which we were really excited about. So we did a deal with them, and we've been just putting it together over the last, it's taken a little bit longer than we thought just because of artwork issues and changing some songs, and all that, but it's actually coming out in April of this year, 2026. And then once we get rolling with that, we'll start doing some shows probably, late April, May, in June and all that. So
fantastic.
So it was definitely was a different recording process going into this record because we're kind of all in different places now. When we made the first record, in the 91, we were in a rehearsal room, 6 days a week, 5 hours a night, doing that whole thing. So this process was more of, okay, let's get together, work on some stuff. Oh, I'll send you some stuff. You work on it at your home studio, and kind of mishmash. And we changed drums on it, changed the drummer in that kind of midstream. So we reworked all the drums on it. And so that was another issue. So it was just a different process. You know, normally we go into a room, we all set up, we're all in different rooms. We play as live. And then once we get the drum tracks, whatever, instrument tracks we got with that good drum track, we would keep and then kind of start building on top of that. So.
Fantastic.
You've described how the band, has done both in the studio and sharing the tracks. But can you talk a little bit about, like, from each perspective, is it easier to, finish a song and walk away with either being in the studio or with tinkering with it? Or when does it stop?
It never does. It never does. And it's funny that you say that, because I was reading an article with Sting. Sting was being interviewed, and he said something that made so much sense to me. He goes, a song, you're never done with a song. There just becomes a time you have to put it down and walk away.
Yeah. Mm.
Because you'll just never, you'll never finish it. It's like you look at, or you watch these documentaries on old bands from the 70s and, maybe early 80s and stuff the guys are making records for like a year. Mm. It's just insane, and so, it's weird. Pro Tools is a curse, and it's a blessing. It's easy. There's a lot of things that are easier, but everybody's got Pro Tools in their bedroom now, and you can just sit there forever and change and change and change. So, it's a new process.
Well, let's talk about that recording process. Getting into the proper studio of years back into the this new era of everybody's got their own little studios in their home. For you, what do you prefer? Do you prefer the old way of going into a proper studio and making music together as a whole, or do you like this new way of, hey, I'm going to email you tracks or Dropbox you tracks? How does it work for you? Where's your preference level at?
Well, right now it's more convenient with the newer way, because I live in Los Angeles. Guitar player lives in San Clemente. Drummer lives in San Diego. Singer is temporarily up in Washington, and bass players in Long Beach. So, we actually are going into the studio here in a week or so to do a couple more songs that will be B-sides on singles that are coming from this record. But we're going to go into it. A friend of ours ended up with the studio that we made our first record in. And he was actually the engineer on our first demos that got us the deal. So it's really weird, full circle, because he never worked with us on the first record when we were in that studio, and now he owns it.
Nice.
So it's just it's very weird circle of things. It's like the guy that was Robert Carranza, who was was the second engineer on our first record, is what turned into, when we went on the road, we were like, hey, you want to come on the road and be our front of house guy, our sound guy? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to, and whatever. So he became part of our family. And now he's gone on to, he just worked on the last couple of Marilyn Manson records, mixing, producing. He's worked a lot with Jack Johnson. He's done stuff with Mars Volta. It was a Motley won Grammys for. And, we were all just, we were just like little puppies back then, when nobody knew what was going on. We're just making records, and then you go on the road and all that. So we made the first record with Dave Jordan, and, Dave Jordan's, Alice in Chains Dirt, Jane's Addiction, Nothing Shocking, just the list goes on with him. And we kind of lucked out with he basically more mixed our record than actually tracked it, because at the same time he was working with Anthrax, and I can't remember what record they were working on, but they were in his studio, and then we were in Stagg Street is where we made our record. So one of his engineers tracked us, and then Dave would come every morning and listen to the tracks from the day before, and then just give his input, and then he would go over and work with Anthrax. But then when we finished the record, he mixed the whole record.
Oh, cool. Very good.
Well, on Bandcamp, there's a kind of a digital pre-release of the album. I think 10 tracks. Which song is the oldest song? You said some of them have been around a while.
I'd say stuff like "I'm Not Afraid," and it's weird because things were either like little jams or chord ideas. Scott, the singer, is writes all the songs. So he also has he does a lot of commercial work, like jingles and stuff like that. So he's constantly writing. Like, we already have enough for another record for next year. Or like way beyond that point. Like, we should be recording right now actually for that record. So a lot of stuff like Sunset and Embry is on there, or maybe it's not. Sunset and Embry is going to be on the vinyl, but that song's been around for a long time, like probably 10 or 15 years, and I fought tooth and nail to get that on the record because it's one of my favorites, and people are starting to gravitate towards it because it just has that old feeling from 90s.
Trees was one of my favorite tracks on there. It was a pretty rockin' banger on there.
I fought for that one too.
Very good. You talk about songs that you have prepared, or I guess, or that are kind of ready for another Dig album. But as far as the Dig musical vault of songs go, is the vault pretty large as far as unused songs, or do you guys pretty much use everything that you have written for the time?
No, it's pretty big. It's pretty big because when we made the first record, we had, like, for every song that's on that first record, we had like 2 or 3 that were kind of like, so Believe was our single, but when we had 2 more songs that were kind of like Believe. And Believe, kind of rose to the top. So there was a whole nother probably record's worth of songs that, were kind of more, I don't know, maybe, B cuts or, B-sides or something like that. So, and there's some really old songs. There's just some songs that are left over because we started on a 4-track. When we got together, we were just doing 4-track demos. And there's a couple left over from the 4-track demos that are still, some of my favorite stuff because it's the oldest and the first to me, what really attracted me to joining the band. Mm-hmm. But they just don't, we're going through this thing now where with this new way, with Pro Tools and all that stuff these days, the problem you get is when you go into the studio and you're like, okay, we know what songs we're going to do, and you start to retract those songs, sometimes you're chasing the demos and you can't get that first feeling of first tracking it and the magic that it had the first time you put it down on tape. So we're constantly chasing these demos. And so that's one thing I don't like about the whole bedroom Pro Tools kind of generation thing, because the way we would demo songs before was we'd say, okay, we got 15 songs. We're going to go to a studio that we have to pay time for. We're going to go in for one day. We're going to set everything up live. We're going to run through all the songs one time, and then we're going to kind of mix them a little bit, and those will be our demos. So you never really had time to sit down and work on stuff. So it never was, like album quality. But it seems like today when people are demoing stuff, some of it's just like, just put it on the record.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Were there any live recordings of the band? I don't think you guys have a live album, do you?
There actually was. Like, we never made them. Well, actually, that's not true because Robert taped a lot of stuff. There's a lot of old DAT tapes and ADAT tapes that he has. I think he still has. But there is a bootleg, and it's called Dig, Hair of the Dog. and it was taped when we were on the road with Bad Brains and Prong, and it was taped at Slim's in San Francisco, and somebody put it out. So there's some live stuff on there, and then there's our EPs are on there, which I think they thought they were demo because they call them demos, but it's actually our EPs. But the funny thing about the cover is our second guitar player looks like Tommy from Prong. Mm-hmm. And they actually put Tommy from Prong's picture on the cover of our CD. It's amazing. It's so cool. And it's funny because we became really good friends with those guys, like, because we did that tour started in Tijuana. It was with Bad Brains and Prong. It started in Tijuana and it ended up at CBGB's in New York. And it was 28 shows.
Oh,
and
so
it
cool.
was gnarly. It was a gnarly, it was just.
That is definitely cool. Well, we're talking about touring right now. Dig will be touring this summer. Can you talk a little bit more about the challenges of planning out a tour for the summer for a heritage act like you?
What we're trying to do is, it's kind of hard because, we haven't been active in some time. So we don't think we're going to, just roll out there and pull numbers that we used to. So for us, we're trying to, find bands that are like us, maybe like 90s, heritage type things,
sure.
like a Sponge and Toadies. I see Toadies has got a great tour coming up. And bands like that, the Everclears and whoever's out doing it. It's like Belly's out. We toured with so many different kinds of bands. It was really strange. It's like, because we had the more, shoegazer side to us, and then we had a heavier side. So on one tour, we're out with Bad Brains and Prong, and then, we did tour with Henry Rollins in Europe. And then we were doing a lot of shows with the Ramones because we were on their same record label and we were managed by the same team. But then we would go out with Juliana Hatfield, and we'd go out with the Posies. And then we were out for 2 months with Blind Melon. Oh, yeah. And so we kind of crossed a lot of, genres as far as from heavy to kind of, more a little bit more poppy with the Posies and that kind of thing.
For sure. Yeah.
What we're trying to do now for the up and coming tours is just maybe it's going to be better for us to find a package where we get 3 likewise bands. I think that a package will draw more than, each band will draw on its own.
Yeah, and I guess that brings up my next question too. Is I wanted to talk a little bit more about going on the road with such diverse genres of bands like the Ramones and the Rollins Band and Blind Melon, etc. Did you feel at the time when you were on the road with any of these bands like, hey, we're kind of like out of our element a little bit, we don't really fit in with this genre, or did it just kind of seem seamless for you guys? If you really listen to the first record, it goes through a lot of different soundscapes. Mm-hmm. So we would just tailor our set list to the crowd that we were going to be playing. The only one we were ever really worried about was the Ramones, because everybody kept telling us their fans don't want to see anybody else except for the Ramones. You know what I mean? And we were like, oh, great. And so, but it kind of wasn't true because I felt like we did good on those, but we also got the blessing from those guys because we were on the same label and same management. And then our singer, Scott, went on to actually produce the Ramones' Acid Eaters record, their cover record. Oh, so cool. Very cool. Yeah, and so we, so he worked with them a lot on that, and then the original drummer in Dig actually ended up playing in Dee Dee Ramone's band, when Dee Dee was just doing his own stuff, and I actually ended up being the tour manager for that. I worked with Dee Dee for like 2 years. And I think I describe it more as a babysitter than a tour manager. Was he doing any of his D.D. King stuff?
No, and I didn't know. And here's crazy. So we were in Japan. We were doing 10 shows in Japan, and we went to, I think it was a H&M or maybe it was a Virgin Megastore or something like that. And we're in there just looking at records. And the drummer calls me up and goes, check this out. And they had D.D. King in there. And I'm like, what is that? He goes, it's D.D. I'm like, no. And he goes, you never heard of D.D. King? And I was like, no. So it was pretty gnarly. It was pretty fun.
Oh, yeah, it's a fun album. Yeah.
Just going to ask you, the album art and the packaging. We kind of briefly talked about that before, but can you talk about the band's approach to this new album?
As far as artwork, the artwork is a close-up of an eyeball. And then the packaging has concepts of that where stuff pulls out and the eye can change colors and stuff like that. But it was just like we were looking for some stuff and we just saw it and we were like, that's it. It just kind of came to us like after looking and trying different, what if we did this? And we were thinking about some maybe 3D glass kind of thing where we could get red vinyl and blue vinyl and then you hold it up and another picture pops up. And because with this vinyl company, we were trying to what can we do that's really cool and nobody's done before. And then the eye came up. And the only bummer thing about the eye is, when we've released digitally, I don't know, 2 months ago or something like that. And we've been using the eye for a while now, on that stuff. But the band Failure is getting ready to release their new record in April 24th, I believe it is. And they just came out with their artwork and it's a big eye. And we're like, what are the chances of that? It's just weird. And then I was looking through some Instagram stuff the other night, and I saw Michael Monroe from Hanoi Rocks has a new record out, and he's got an eyeball on the cover of his.
He does. That's right.
So it's going to be 2026 is going to be the year of the eye.
Exactly. Well, the thing about packaging now, obviously we know that, record sales are not what, as far as physical product goes, it's not of the, the pop culture for kids any longer. But, talk a little bit more about, getting creative with packaging to sell a physical product. Because, bands are doing anything and everything they possibly can to sell a physical product. It's really cutting edge stuff now. But how important is it for you guys to get super, involved with the packaging and the creativity behind it?
I think now besides doing the band stuff, I have a small merchandising company, and I work with other bands. Band thing is mostly my thing, and I actually silkscreen and make merch product and stuff like that. But I actually go on the road with bands as well, so I could see what's happening out there. And it's just where the bands are making the money. Guarantees are what you can get, and a lot of times clubs are just trying to rip you off. I've been with a lot of bands where I'm like, we had to have sold out and you guys had to have bonused, and they're like, no, we were 50 people short. And it's it's just crazy, all the time. And I'm like, how does this keep happening all the time? We never reach the bonus round, and it's how could you put 50 more people in this fucking place? It's just ridiculous. So, a lot of people would be like, oh, don't do CDs. They're stupid. Nobody has a CD player anymore or whatever. But I'll tell you, as a merch manager, the way you sell, the reason why people sell CDs on the road is because fans that want to meet you after the show, and if you come out to your merch booth, which you should because it helps you sell more merch at the end of the night, keeps you on the road. People grab the CDs because they want to be able to come up to you and say, hey, can you sign this? And what that is that's an icebreaker between the fan and the artist. And it gives that person a reason to come up to you. Maybe they don't have a CD player, but they want to come up to you and say, hi, love your music, want to support.
Definitely. definitely.
So as far as like packaging and stuff like that, more collectible type stuff is becoming more popular. I know that like a lot of the bigger artists like Madonna and all that, they were doing those crazy tour books that had all the extra stuff in it that were super cool, like, stuff you want to like keep. But we were going to do a whole packaging thing based on like Apple packaging. We were going to do a full white album cover, but it was just going to be the adventure of opening it up.
Oh, very cool.
You know what I mean? Because
yeah.
And there's a whole thing on Apple packaging, the way the boxes don't just pull out. There's a lag time, and it gives you suspense, and it's like a weird thing. And it's like, I was reading this and I was like, oh my God, I do. I keep all of my Apple packaging. I have it all because the boxes are so cool.
That is cool. Very cool. Good, Jeff.
Well, you probably already answered it, but I was going to ask you, that was going to be the next question. I was going to ask you about your merchandise on the road for Dig. Does the band get involved with picking out the shirts and the styles and stuff like that, or how does it work?
It's really hard because that's what I do every day for other bands.
Yeah.
And then I got 4 other dudes in the band going, we should do this, we should do that. I'm to the point now where we don't fight over it, but we definitely debate over it. And I'm to the point now I'm like, everybody gets to do their own shirt.
Oh, cool.
And then we'll see. And then we'll see, which one sells. And then everybody gets all, well, maybe we'll just stick with that. Because then they get all like, oh, if my shirt doesn't sell, it's my fault.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, we wouldn't be remiss if we did not bring up 1993 Dig's release, self-titled album. That album was produced by Dave Jordan, obviously from Alice in Chains and Jane's Addiction and Anthrax fame, and on and on and on. What can you tell us about the writing and recording of that album and working with Dave?
That record, so that was, way before, Pro Tools. I guess Pro Tools was going around maybe at that time, but we didn't have it. We had a 4-track. So Scott was like writing everything on a 4-track, and then we'd go in the studio and our rehearsal studio and just, really woodshed on the stuff. And so we got signed off of kind of one of those 4-track demos because our drummer had a friend in New York that he sent the 4-track to and said, hey, I just want you to check out this new band I'm working with. I really like it. I think it's really good. Wasn't trying to submit or anything, but she worked for Radioactive Records, which was the Ramones record label. So what happened with the Ramones is when they were on Sire, and their contract came up for renegotiation. When they went in to negotiate it, Sire didn't want to give them what they were asking for. So Gary Kurfürst, their manager, said, well, fine, we'll start our own record label. And then that's what they did. They started Radioactive Records. Ramones put out, I think, Adios Amigos and the cover record. I think they put out one other record through it. They also had the band live. Tracy Lords had a dance record on it. Mm-hmm. There was another band called Angel Fish from Scotland, which was Shirley Manson's first band. Yeah, and so crazy stories with her. Like, I saw that you had one of the girls from L7 on one of your podcasts. Yes. And so before the Blind Melon tour, when things were heating up with Dig, they sent me, the label sent me up to Board Aid, which was a big snowboarding benefit back in the 90s, with snowboarders and bands playing up on the slopes up in Big Bear. And Shirley had just signed with the label as Angelfish. And they said, take her with you. And when you're doing these press junkets, try and push her into the, as she's a label mate and all that. I was like, okay. So, my tour manager and Shirley and myself and one of our radio guys went up, and there's a picture of me and one of the girls from L7 in Kerrang magazine that came out from that with an MTV microphone in front of us. And standing right next to me is Shirley Manson, but they cropped her out of the picture.
Oh, no.
Because they didn't know who she was. And I'm like, it's so amazing. Like, she's become like the most famous out of all of us, you know, and like they just like cut her out. Like,
That's awesome.
Yeah, I like that Angelfish album. I got that one.
it's cool. It's definitely cool. The first time they came over and played here, they played at a club called Raji's in LA, which I'm really jealous about because it was a really super kind of like a lot of cool bands played there. And I never played there through all the years I was in LA, but Angelfish borrowed all of our gear. We took all of our gear down there so they could play a show. And that was pretty cool. So anyway, so we gave the demo to our friend, and she said, "Oh, I want to give this to Gary. I think it's really good. And it's kind of up our alley." And we were like, "Oh, no, we have a proper demo that we can send you out." But we didn't want the 4-track to go to him. So we literally scrambled, and our friend that actually got the studio where we made our first record worked at a studio in Burbank, and he's like, "I'll sneak you in overnight. We'll do a better demo, and we'll send that out." And so we sent out that demo to them, and then Gary was like, "Oh, well, I want to see the band." And then Scott was at the time working in the video industry, and we were actually working on our own video. So we just finished that. So we sent him the video that we were working on, and that's how we got signed. It was, and we were all at that point. We were only a band for 6 months.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it was one of those things. It just like everything with this band just kind of like, as you know, through all the other bands that I've been in before, it's just this band just snowballed from the start.
Yeah, I got to tell you that '93 debut album is no joke, man. It's a banger.
Yeah, I still remember
through and through.
Yeah, it's good. It's definitely. I'm proud of it.
It's definitely a special album for sure.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit more about, being that young band and, stuff like MTV's Buzz Bin and MTV's 120 Minutes. I miss shows like that. Can you talk a little bit about, being a young band and getting that spotlight?
Yeah. So the MTV, the Buzz clip we got that when we were on the road with Bad Brains and Prong, and actually at that show in San Francisco, those guys would come around our band a lot, the Bad Brains guys, because we were on a tour right before that, and our singer had planted all these pot plants in his backyard, and when we got back from tour, they were growing over the fence. They were out of control. And so he called me. He's like, "Dude, you got to come to the house. We got to cut all this shit down." And so we cut all the trees down, basically. And so we had all that weed when we went on the Bad Brains and Prong tour. And so the Bad Brains guys were always like, "Hey, you had a great show." And we're like, "How much weed do you want?" Like whatever. So yeah, I mean, every night they're like, "You guys had the best show ever." We're like, "Here's weed," But in one of those times when we were in San Francisco, the bass player, his name was Daryl, he came up to us and said, "Dudes, I heard you guys got Buzz Clip." And we're like, we didn't know. And we're like, "What?" He goes, "Yeah, you guys got Buzz Clip and blah, blah, blah." And he goes, "The last band that was on the road with us that got Buzz Clip was the Beastie Boys." And he's like, "You guys are going to be huge." And we were like, "What?" Like, it was crazy. So we went from being on that tour and getting like $250 a night and playing at 7:00 or whatever the opening slot was. They were great shows though, because they were always sold out before the doors opened and it was packed. They were an amazing tour. But then we would go from that, like, within a couple months, Blind Melon's like, "Hey, we'd love to have you on the tour," because they were going through secondary markets. So that was like 1,000 to 5,000 seaters with them. But we were able to, help them, sell them out, because they were always close to being sold out, but then throw us on with the Buzz Clip and they just pushed it over the top. And then being able to go into like, Trees in Dallas, which holds at like 800, and sell it out without even trying. So all of a sudden, your opening band making nothing to, being able to pick your own tour, make your own tour, and then bring bands on with us, bands that we liked, so it was pretty magical.
Oh, so cool. Well, I have one last question for you, then we'll leave you alone for the evening. Some of our listeners might be unfamiliar with the history of Dig. Since you guys crossed genres with so many different artists on your tours, can you just give our listeners just a little bit of the history of the band before we let you go for the evening?
I guess just a brief overall history.
Yeah, just brief.
Just how you guys met or got together. Yeah.
So we, Scott and Anthony, the drummer, and the drummer and the singer, were working together on a film job. Hey, let's put together a band. Scott was singing and playing guitar, wanted to be the singer. Thought, well, maybe we'll bring in another guitar player. That's when I kind of came into the picture. There was another guy in the band playing bass at that time that I was in another band right before that. So he called me. And then I ran into, so then we started, doing all the 4-track stuff. And then we were like, wait, we're going to need one more guitar because we're writing all these guitar parts. So we need 2 guitars in the band and whatever. So I ran into John Morris, who was the second guitar player at a Tin Machine show.
Oh, cool.
So that was at the Palladium. He's like, what are you doing? I'm like, I'm in this band. And so Scott, John, and myself are all from San Diego. So we kind of knew each other from backyard parties from the 80s. And so that's how that kind of got together. Found our bass player at the last minute. We were going to use a fill-in guy. And then that just kind of solidified that. 4-track demo goes to a friend. Turns out the label's looking for people, likes what we're doing. We get the deal. The manager of the label worked with Dave Jordan and was good friends with Dave Jordan through the Jane's Addiction stuff. And then that's how we got Dave to do the record, which was wonderful working with him. He was like an amazing guy. He really made you feel like you were the guy, and you could do, it was just amazing. Because it's scary going in, like making your first record, and you're just like, oh God, can I cut it? And all that. And then did the record with him, and then started doing some small tours. Our first EP had come out at that time, so started doing some small tours. We did a crazy show that we did was for the EP. We did a show in Sacramento to about 40 people, but we were opening up for Rage Against the Machine.
Oh wow!
And it was the day their first record came out.
Oh wow!
And it was literally 40 people there to see us and them, mostly to see them probably. But, and I remember I went to the guitar tech guy and I'm like, hey man, we're going to be touring a lot. Things are going to happen for us and whatever. I don't know what these guys are doing with this rap rock thing or whatever it is, but like, we're going to, we're going places. And he was like, no, I think I'll stay with these guys and whatever. And I was just like, I always think about that. Or I was trying to steal their guitar tech because I could not figure out what they were doing. Like, it was just crazy. It was so different at the time. And then Buzzput comes along and we start touring a lot. We did all the festivals in '94. So we did Reading and Pink Pop and all those, and those were great times. We were always out with we were always kind of in the same pocket with the Stabbing Westward guys and the Candlebox guys. It was always us 3 in a row in one order or another. Yeah, and then one of the crazy things that happened from the Reading Festival was trying to get my amp up on the stage, and there's these big steel ramps that led up to the stage, and they were all muddy because it had rained. And I was trying to get one of my amps up, and there's a guy next to me trying to do the same thing because he's playing at a different time. And we kind of looked at each other, we were laughing, and oh, hey, I'll help you, you help me, and we'll get this done. Okay, cool. Talk to him for a couple minutes. All right, have a great show. I go in to go shave. He goes to play, and it was Jeff Buckley.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And which is one of my favorite records.
Yeah.
But I didn't know. At that time, I wasn't really into the record. And I'm like, I can't believe it. I could have been side stage watching. I helped him get his amp on stage, and I didn't even watch the band.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then go to shave in the bathroom. Me and Henry Rollins in the bathroom trying to shave with cold water. I'm like, Henry, how do you do this? He's like, I don't know. It sucks.
Well, I'm sorry to throw that question on you at the very end, but I thought it was going to be the last question, but I got one more question for you.
Yeah, no worries. We can go as long as you want. I'll go forever.
Tin Machine is like, one of my favorites. The Sales Brothers,
Really?
Reeves Gabriel,
Wow.
Bowie. I mean, that debut album was a frickin' cooker, and you got to see those guys live. Talk just a short bit about seeing Tin Machine live.
Well, back in the day, so back in that time, the whole time the whole story that I've told you about Dig and all that whole time, I worked at Tower Records. I worked at Tower Records for 13 years. And so while we were on the road, I would just go on the road and then tour, come back, work at Tower Records. So during that time, I got to go see pretty much anybody I wanted to see. And Tin Machine was there. The label people were, coming into Tower, come on down, and hang out and check out the show and all that. And it's just one of those things. Seeing David Bowie is just like, it's just royalty, It's just like, it's just good, and that's where I ran into John. It was such a fluke that we were both there at the same show. It's one of those things. There's one more story about like when we were in, so we played Reading Festival. When we played Reading Festival in '94, we kind of played earlier on a side stage, and we had the rest of the day to go and check out bands. And it was like, like just Radiohead and just everybody. And '94 was like the year for what we were doing. And we were backstage of the main stage, and Brian May is over in the corner. And we're both guitar players. We both grew up on Queen, and we're like, holy shit, Brian May is over there. And we go running over there, and we go right up to him, and we're like, Brian May. And he's like, yeah. And we had nothing else to say to him. We both, we froze. We're like, we're going to get in this whole conversation with him. He's going to be our bro. And it was like, that's all we said, Brian May. And he was like, yeah.
That's so cool.
Oh, we just deer in the headlights. We had nothing we could talk about.
Oh, that's so cool. Well, we're out of our allotted time for the evening. Is there anything that we left off tonight that you would like to plug or promote?
You can check out some of our stuff. So if you want to check out the Dig stuff, we're on Instagram at Dig the Band. You can find us that way. Mm-hmm. Bandcamp, some of the digital download is up for the record. There's going to be like 2 extra tracks on the record that you can't get from the digital download. So that's Dig that you can find us at digtheband.bandcamp. The record also is up on YouTube. You can listen to it on YouTube. Dig. The title of the record is I, lowercase I. The cover is an I, EYE. Mm-hmm. And that's it. So hopefully, we'll be firing up. It's definitely coming out middle of April, and then shows after that.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah. Well, this is how things are going to work out. Jeff, the editing wizard over here, we'll get everything all cleaned up, and we'll all sound like $1 million. How's that sound?
Awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Thank you so much. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks, Johnny.
Yeah, thank you guys.
Yeah, we'll be in touch with their episode. Sound good?
Sounds great.
Thank you, man. Have a good one.
Good night.
Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
wags their tongue and pays their bills instead. Hide in the spotlights, fight the grip of death. You can have the air you need, but you best not take one breath. Hey. Roll the dice. Take your chances. Everybody knows the game is fixed, there is no prize. Everybody pulls the plug and says their last goodbyes. Move to the sunshine, fight the grip of nights. If they ever take from you, then you plug out both